Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Ziegler. Okay, hello guys, welcome back. We have a special guest today. We have Ed Roe from the College Internship Program in Bloomington. And thanks for coming and speaking to us there, and I'll just let you take it away.
Yeah, well, welcome to Bloomington.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming, Tabitha. We're actually here in our center in Bloomington. This is one of our rooms that we work with our students in. And my name's Ed Roe. I am the program director of College Internship Program in Bloomington, Indiana here, and I've been here for just about 2 years now. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I spent 20 years in the K through 12 sector in public schools. I was at a public charter school for 15 of those 20 years, and I've done administrative work. I was a classroom teacher first, obviously, department head, administrative work, and I was a college and career advisor too.
Okay.
And a couple of years ago, I made the move into what I guess we consider the quote private sector. And I ended up here at CIP. We usually go by the acronym CIP.
Okay.
CIP is, I've just been impressed and also enjoyed my time as program director here. It's funny because before, in my as I call it, my previous life, when I was doing the college and career advising, I would work with neurodivergent students at that high school sometimes, and we'd go through I'd have to work with them a lot more than I would with neurotypical students, obviously, because they're like, well, I've got this, these are all the colleges I want to go to. How do I get into them? Well, let's work on it. Okay. With neurodiverse students, we would spend a lot of time talking about how to start their college career. Do they want to go to a 4-year school? Is that their best option right away? But then we would also do things like call up Ivy Tech, the community college, we would get meetings with disability services. We would talk about how to transfer their accommodations over from high school into their college life and how to still continue to receive those accommodations. And there was a lot of extra factors and a lot of more specific factors that I had to work with a lot of those students on. So it felt like the right move for me to sort of jump that gap and sort of see what it's like on the other side after they've gone away from home and finished with college and everything. So what we do here, we are a program, actually we just celebrated our 40th anniversary last year.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. CIP has been around, I always tell people, since before autism was a word.
Right.
And our founder he's retired now, and he was working with a group of students in Massachusetts, that's where our flagship program is. And he was working with a group of young adults who were, as we call it, and they were experiencing failure to launch. So they get out of high school, they're trying to go to college, enter the workforce, and especially college, and everything just seems to fall apart. They're smart, they're capable, they were able to get through high school, but there was something about college or starting life afterwards that really confounded those students that our founder used to work with. And he started off, it was essentially kind of like almost like a group home or sort of just a small program helping young adults transition into adulthood and helping them with their, what we call today, executive functioning skills. Right. So that was the part of the big problem that was eventually diagnosed. So these students had autism, and their executive functioning and organizational skills were not at a level where they were able to complete their schoolwork or get it turned in properly. They were also oftentimes experiencing social issues. And that happens a lot with our students here. A lot of our students experience a lot of anxiety around having to sort of juggle the workloads, having to do things like email a professor or talk to them face to face. That can be a real anxiety-inducing thing for them, especially with authority figures and stuff like that. So that's a lot of what we do here, is to help them navigate that as well. So right now in our center in Bloomington, we have 12 students here in residence with us right now, and they live here all year with us. Actually, today's our last day of programming. And most of them will be heading home for the next 6 weeks or so to be with their families, and then they'll come back to us in mid-August. We'll start up in the next year again. And we do have a few older students who have been with the program for a little bit longer. They're actually in our graduate living community program where they live in their own apartments right up the street mostly. They pay their own rent. They are either going to school or they're working a job, either full-time or almost full-time. And they're only engaging in services with our organization about 5 hours a week or so. So they're really very independent. And it's that next step before, as I often tell our students, our job is to make sure you never have to see us again.
Right.
And it sounds silly, but that, we want them to go off and be successful.
Or that their parents never have to see them again.
Well, that's also thought.
I know it's kind of a joke. It's just a joke amongst, parents that have children with autism, because the goal is for our children to fit into society the way that every other kid gets to, and gets to experience things like living in their own apartment.
Exactly.
By themselves, being able to function by themselves.
Exactly. And our parents, our families are very involved in our process. And actually, our parents, as you can imagine, are for the most part very involved in their child's life,
right,
because they've spent 20 years having to be very involved in their child's life. Many of us would say that it's, sometimes it can be very, very overbearing, and sometimes they're more hands-on. But whatever the family dynamic, when they come here, there's always that sense for families, there's that sense of kind of relief at some point. Like, I'm finally able to hand my child off to a group of professionals who can be a third party. We just had a tour in here yesterday with a prospective family, and it was a lot of fun to watch, because him and his mom had this banter going back and forth about how irritating he was to her and how irritating she was to him. And you could tell that it was a lot of fun, and they obviously loved each other, but just that banter back and forth, that she's like, oh, you're going to go be someone else's problem for a little bit, all that kind of stuff. So,
well, yeah, just think how freeing it is, not just for the parents, but for, these, I don't want to call them children because they're adults.
We call them adults or students. That's what we call them. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But if we think back just in our own experience, like the separation between, ourselves leading our parental home, and the anxiety and all that comes with it, but also the excitement. And eventually when your own parents see you in a space where they have given permission, and now they see you functioning, and then they can visit you, like the freedom that must give a parent of an autistic child that thought, I don't know if this is ever going to be possible, and then to see them do it.
That's exactly right. The change that we see change in the students, but it's much, much slower, obviously, because we're with them a lot. Just to sort of give you the idea of how much time we spend with our students, they live in an apartment. Right now, we are taping this from the bottom floor of an apartment complex in downtown Bloomington, and they live in the units that we rent right above us. They live in the floors right above us. So we are with them many hours every day, every week. They spend anywhere from 25 to 30 hours of services with us. And that includes things like weekend social activities, all sorts of stuff like that. And they're doing all kinds of things in their apartments down here with us. Some of the students are on campuses, either at community college or at Indiana University, which is 6 blocks right down the street from here, or they are getting their feet wet in some, for many of them, their first employment opportunity or first real employment opportunity, not just like a couple hours a week here and there. We do a lot of volunteer work. We do a lot of internships, trying to tailor it around what the students really interested in. Because as we know with a lot of our students who are on the spectrum, if it's an interest or an activity that is not preferred, our students who are not going to really enjoy it very much. But if it's something that they are very into, or that it's a preferred or very special activity, or whatever that is, movies or video games or building things, architecture, animals, whatever their interest is, they are brilliant at it. So, a lot of what we do here at Bloomington is we also do a lot of, besides working on life skills like laundry, cleaning, living with a roommate, conflict resolution, all the things that every one of us going to college at 18 years old could really have used.
Of course.
Regardless of what comes after the neuro, after our classification. I tell our students all the time, I say, if you think all the other IU students that live in this building have their lives together at 21 years old and they're doing it all right, you're fooling yourself.
Oh, yeah.
All of us needed that help back then. And you mentioned parents, and it's really funny too, because like that family who was here yesterday, that banter they had going back and forth. But when families come here the first day of orientation, which will be the beginning of August, and they'll drop their kid off, and in the morning you have some paperwork and stuff we fill out, but most of the day they're spent upstairs with their kid, organizing. They come here, they're dropping them off somewhere far away, usually for the very first time, and we have folks coming from all over the place, Colorado, California, we've had students from New York, everywhere, not just the Midwest, not just Indiana, but there's a point during that day at about 4 p.m. when we ask staff members to go out to get some ice cream or do something, a social thing with the new students so they can all get to know each other and stuff. And I bring the parents who have been working all day, usually very hard, to make sure that before they leave, their child's personal belongings and space are set up exactly the way that they want it. And a lot of coordinating and saying, okay, all your forks are going to be here. Here's your laundry basket, all that stuff. And then nervous and scared, they all come downstairs without their kids. And I sit with them and we talk for a little bit. We call it a letting go ceremony. And we talk for a little bit about how, don't worry, we got them. Here's all the emergency phones and everything that they can call. We ask the parents to program them into their phone as well in case there's ever a problem, so they always have ways to contact us. We talk about how it's a really good idea for the parents to step back a little bit. And I would never going to tell a family you can't speak to your child. That's ridiculous. But for a lot of them, like, a lot of your children might need very frequent check-ins. Be cognizant of how many times a week that's happening. Be cognizant of how many times you think they might need. Be cognizant of maybe pulling back a little bit as they get more comfortable. We talk a lot with families about letting staff pick up that slack. You know what I mean? And then we also get into this idea of, we get into the idea of what we call enabling. That's often taken as a bad word or a negative connotation. That's not what I mean it as. I mean it simply as if your child isn't used to calling you whenever something is wrong that they can't figure out, and you keep on trying to help them figure it out, that is enabling. It's enabling them to continue in that pattern. It's not meant to be a negative comment that I tell families that. I'm not trying to blame anyone for anything, but there needs to be a cognizance with families in our program that, tell them it's okay. How about you go downstairs and ask CIP staff? Well, if you talk to Ed about it, maybe he knows it. Maybe he can give you some tips or something like that. Or when they come to your apartment, do they help you with this? And sometimes the parents will sort of step around the student too, because our students aren't the best oftentimes at relaying that information to remembering to, again, executive functioning. And but the parents will sometimes sort of sidestep around and shoot us an email like, hey, I was talking to my kid today about they're really struggling in X, Y, and Z. And, hey, that's great to know. Thank you. They haven't told us that. And sometimes they're a little bit embarrassed, like, I should be able to do this on my own, and I don't want to ask for help. I'm like, but that's what we're here for. And I try to tell students who are here, these are the four walls in the center where if you make a mistake, we're going to help you get up off the floor. We're going to brush you off. We're going to say, well, that didn't work.
Right.
What can we do different next time? We do everything positive here. It's all about playing to students' strengths. It's about meeting them where they're at in every sort of function, their social skills, their executive functioning, their academics. We help our students get their careers moving. We do career exploration with them. We try to play to their interests so they can look for possible jobs or careers in the areas that they have a lot of passion in. We do a lot of academic support too, especially in executive functioning, cooking, cleaning, all that kind of stuff. So it's the whole package. We do grocery shopping support, everything. And our students really come to be very, very close to us. And I was actually out there in the front of our center just a minute ago. We have a shout out board that every week the students take a post-it note and put a new shout out there for either a staff or a student, one of their peers, that they've noticed something positive. And this week it was one of them was a shout out from one of our students to one of our interns that we have right now from IU, who's one of our social work interns who's been working with them all year. And they said, shout out to Andrew for feeling like a brother to me. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that just makes my heart happy, when I see them acting just as their parents have always hoped that they would, and meeting the peers here that are struggling through a lot of the same things that they are, and making those connections. I love when I'm standing at the front of the center here, and we have a walking path right outside our front door, and Some points in the day, depending on what the weather is, you'll see little roving gaggles of CIP students taking a walk after lunch together because they all had lunch, and let's go for a walk because we don't have the class for a little bit, so let's just take a walk to blow some energy off. You know what? They're just so social with each other, and when parents, when they leave at that letting go ceremony, the last thing we talk about is how parents can start to take care of themselves again and take some of that worry and burden off of their minds, that you've got people here who are going to be a third party and they're on your side and they're going to help the students, your kid, because we're an expert and we know we've been doing this for a long time and we know how. And just that sort of reassurance, a lot of parents would want to break down crying right there. But when they come back a couple months later for our family and alumni weekend, and they get to see their student interacting with their peers, they get to see them getting up and like talking in front of a crowd sometimes, like to talk about their experiences. We also have them create a person-centered plan with like goals, short-term and long-term goals in whatever they're looking for. So if, a lot of our students will give a goal such as like, have a girlfriend, get a significant other. That might be a couple of years down the road, but we're going to help them with that. And we're actually going to help them with the social aspect of that. We're going to talk about what's involved in dating. Well, you want to go out somewhere and date, you got to have money. So let's talk about budgeting. So we do that with them and all that stuff too. So we're doing all that kind of stuff. When parents come back and see that progress and their student is presenting to them their goals and what they've been working on and what they want to keep doing, and just sort of, even in a couple of months, the way they sort of blossom, a lot of tears. And it's tears of joy. Families just are oftentimes so relieved to see them that their kid has a place where they belong.
Well, what I find really interesting about everything that you're saying is your organization is a perfect testament against some things that are being said right now about the capacities of autistic people. So I'm so happy that you mentioned all these things because, all the people participating in this program, they're working on life skills. Yes. They're working on getting a job. They're working on living by themselves. So they seem to not really be a burden to their families anymore.
No. And in fact, I would, if I had to ask, knowing my families as well as I do, if I were to call any of them right now and say, hey, do you consider your child to be a burden to your family in any way? I can't imagine that any one of them would ever say, oh, yeah, he's a burden or she's a burden. No, every one of our families just absolutely adores their child. They're just scared and worried and want their kid to be able to pursue the same dreams and goals that all of us have. So funny you mentioned that, because I'm looking right out here outside of our conference room, and on the wall in every one of our centers, we have 5 of them across the country, and on the wall in every one of our centers is a statement, a quote from our founder, Dr. Michael McLandon, and it reads, look at it right now, it says, "You were made for good purpose and are inherently valuable." And that is a motto that we go by. I can't think of anything more against the rhetoric we hear out there now. Our students are human beings. They're people with thoughts and dreams and goals and feelings, and just because their brain is wired in a way that makes gathering and processing information and executing tasks sometimes difficult and confusing doesn't mean they're incapable of figuring out. Does not mean they are not able to live up to every bit of potential they have. That's a bunch of garbage to me. Every one of our students, every person with autism is inherently valuable and is made for good purpose. And that's just what we go by. And the folks here who work in this center believe that deeply as well. We've had students who are, one of our students went out with some friends that he's made here around town a few months ago, and also some of his friends here at CIP. They went out to celebrate. He just finished an online course that he was working on in public speaking, because he has aspirations to be a life coach for people someday. He wants to be able to take the experiences that he has had throughout his life and be able to use those to help others. It's actually a really common thing that a lot of our students talk about, wanting to help others who are like them to understand that they are also valuable and they were made for big purpose and they can do all the things they want to do as well. And this student decided to invite some of his friend group out to a restaurant and do like an a celebration to celebrate the fact that he had finished this course that he'd been working on. And I want to say out of our staff, 3 of them decided to come along with him. They took time out of their schedule after work to come and spend that time to cheer him on. And that you don't find that all over the place. So I feel like the sort of atmosphere we keep here, the attitude that we have here, that we do at each of our centers, but especially in Bloomington too. I mean, just because I know Bloomington the best, but attitude is yes, you can do it. Do you need our help? If you do, what do you need us to do? Let's start working on it. But we don't do things for the students, we do things with the students. It's always about modeling and showing them that lesson, And we get into the nitty gritty of things sometimes, like, doing your taxes, that kind of stuff, or like how to read a pay stub, that, really detailed things. And it's amazing because when they're here with their parents, they're sort of hiding in the shadow of their parents a little bit and just sort of responding to what their parents are asking or we're asking and all that. But what I'm always looking for whenever we're touring with prospective students, I'm always looking to see how they're interacting with other people, but also what their goals are and what their passions are. And I always want to ask them about that. And I always get to some point where the student just starts going on about something they're really interested in. And once we have that, we sort of know how to hook them. And we know how to sort of get them involved in everything we do here, even if their motivation to do it isn't really high sometimes. We also find that once they're separated from their parents and they're here being treated as an adult, being talked to as an adult, being taught the things adults need to know, they transform very quickly. They start to sort of blossom. There's no shadow to hide behind it anymore. And they also don't feel like if they say something or do something, they're going to be ridiculed for it. It's a safe space with people who are similar in their experiences to them and staff members who are incredibly supportive and kind. And when that happens, it's just amazing. So those families come back after a couple months for the first time and see their kid and see how they're speaking in front of a bunch of adults and they're going off to their internship at the radio station that we have one of our students at down the street. And when we we had our annual convocation and awards ceremony last month, and we give out our awards and we talk about student achievements. And when we talked about this particular student, we played a clip that we put on the slideshow of his interview that was on the air with our intern here, who is the IU men's ultimate frisbee captain. So the guy, our student who works who was volunteering at the radio station, is very sports oriented. He was either the broadcaster or a podcaster, something like that. So immediately we're like, how about you go work at WMHB? So he's over there. He goes there about 4 or 5 hours a week, and he's always creating and collecting content and radio stories. So when his slide came up about his achievements, we embedded about a 2-minute clip of that in there, and man, the crowd went nuts. I mean, families were just like crying and just clapping, and it was such a cool thing. He did a 10-minute interview, and they ran the whole thing on air and all that stuff. And he's done about 3 of them now, I think. So he's going to come back and do more in the fall. So I mean, just when they start to see the things they've been thinking about doing actually happening in front of them, they can't help but think that they were made for good purpose and are inherently valuable.
Well, I think that really it's a testimony to the type of organization that you have. Because we spoke earlier, and you had said that CIP was one of the first organizations that took a hard stance against some of the very polarizing statements that were made lately concerning autism. And I thought that was that's an important thing to note, because there are a lot of businesses right now trying to navigate that and making the choice as an organization to take more of a soft stance. And I think the ones taking a hard stance really are the ones that are advocating for their people, advocating for people with autism.
You're probably referring to the RFK drama that's been happening recently about autism registries and parents being put off by their children being burdens to them and all sorts of stuff like that. I was very proud after that happened that CIP, our president, put out a statement on social media, various social media outlets, regarding CIP stance on that, which is BS. Everyone is inherently valuable, and our students impress us and amaze us and make us happy every day with what they're capable of doing and how they can do it, and they're just unique and wonderful people. And there's not a thing that we see here that is a permanent hindrance for them. It's all a process in which they get to the goals by working hard, thinking, and asking for advice and asking for help too. And that's all there is to it. So I was also proud of how many of our employees on LinkedIn very quickly started liking that, commenting on it, reinforcing that. We did the same thing here at the center as well, because some of our students did hear about those comments and they did not care for that at all. So we told them that no, that's never something that we're going to support. In these four walls, you are always valued, and you always will be, because you should be, because you are a part of our community as well. And I will say the community of Bloomington does a wonderful job of that too. It's a college town, it's a very liberal town, but it's incredibly accepting. I'll tell families a lot of the time that I can't think of a better town for students, for our particular students, to live and engage with the community, because it's very accepting here. Our students put their headphones on and walk down the street talking to themselves, or listening to music, or watching videos while they're talking or laughing out loud and stuff like that. Social awareness might not always be there. In Bloomington, we just walk right past folks like that and just, they're just going about their day. It's very accepting. No one takes a second look. No one is like, well,
I think things like that are important.
They are.
And they're examples for the community and other businesses to be able, it basically gives people permission, right?
Yeah.
Because whenever you see things like, Governor Ron up there with RFK, and, they did a little thing recently, last month or so, in Indianapolis, and, it's covered pretty widely by the news. And then you have people in our communities, be they, parents or professionals, watching this. And I just found it really interesting, the lack of response. So that's why I thought it was important to applaud you for doing that, because I think autistic individuals or other neurodiverse individuals in the communities that may be scared and put off by these type of statements, every time an organization takes that opportunity to stand in unity with these people, it provides a safe space. And I think that's really important, so I thought I'd applaud you for that.
That's exactly right. Thank you. But also,
well, you're welcome.
You're exactly right.
We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.